On the very week that the Senate began impeachment hearings into former President Donald Trump's incitement of insurrection at the Capitol, prosecutors in Georgia are now looking into the perfect call made by Donald Trump in order to try to overturn Georgia's election results. You all know. You know the perfect call, right? Where he's asking for 11,780 votes to win the election? Yeah. Now, the New York Times is reporting that prosecutors in Fulton County have initiated a criminal investigation into former President Trump's attempts to overturn the Georgia election results. That include a phone call he made to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's office, in which Trump pressured him to find enough votes to help him reverse his loss. I don't care where you find the votes. Just go, can you find me some votes? I just need a few votes. Can you help me? You're a Republican. Why aren't you helping me? Because there's no votes for you to find. Look, and here's the thing. Georgia did what? At least two recounts where they still did not find enough votes for Donald Trump to win because he lost. Georgia was an upset. Now, on Wednesday, Fonnie Williams, the recently elected Democratic prosecutor in Fulton County, sent a letter to numerous officials in state government, including Mr. Raffensperger, requesting that they preserve documents related to an investigation into attempts to influence the administration of the 2020 Georgia general election. So that is bad for him. While the letter does not mention Mr. Trump by name, it is related to his intervention in Georgia's election, according to a state official with knowledge of the matter. This investigation includes, but is not limited to, potential violations of Georgia law prohibiting the solicitation of election fraud, the making of false statements to state and local government bodies, conspiracy, racketeering, violation of oath of office, and of any involvement of violence or threats related to the elections administration, according to the letter. Oh, snap. So good. Oh. In addition to Mr. Raffensperger, the letter was also sent to some of the state's other top Republican office holders, including Governor Brian Kemp, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, and Attorney General Chris Carr. Trump, of course, had called a lot of these officials to try to get them to find him some votes based on allegations of voter fraud, which, of course, they couldn't prove because they didn't have evidence of. Now, the Times also reports that in addition to the phone call to Mr. Raffensperger, he also called Kemp in early December to try to pressure him to call a special legislative session to overturn the election loss. So to go against literally the will of the voters, he doesn't care about the will of the voters. He cares about his own will, and that's his will to win the election, his desire to win the election. Later that month, Mr. Trump called the state investigator and pressed the official to, quote-unquote, find the fraud. According to those with knowledge of the call, well, of course, we did find the fraud. The fraud was you. The fraud was Trump. I'm just saying. Now, the inquiry, of course, makes Georgia the second state after New York, where Trump is facing a criminal investigation. Cyrus Vance is, of course, looking into his financial dealings. And it comes in a jurisdiction where potential jurors are unlikely to be hospitable to the former president. Fulton County encompasses most of Atlanta and supported Biden in the November election. How ironic. The very people that Trump sought to disenfranchise will now get to decide on Trump's fate in Georgia. Now, of course, I'm sure that they will be fair, impartial. They'll look at the evidence, unlike, of course, Trump himself, who will not be fair, or who is not fair and impartial. It doesn't care about the evidence. So here's the thing, the call really speaks for itself. We've listened to it on the show before. He said, find me the votes. He said he's got, there's evidence of fraud, but I don't have the evidence. And of course you had just clear illegality in this call. Again, trying to interfere in an election process. Former prosecutors said that Mr. Trump's calls might run afoul of at least 3 different state laws. One is criminal solicitation to commit election fraud. Ooh, not good. Which can either be a felony or misdemeanor. As a felony, it's punishable by at least a year in prison. There's also conspiracy, which should be prosecuted either as a misdemeanor or a felony. A third law, a misdemeanor, bars intentional interference with another person's performance of election duties. Of course, that would be Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and his administration of the Georgia elections. And that's, again, a lot of this is related to the threats that he had made against Kemp and Raffensperger because they didn't do enough to help him rig that election in his favor. They refused to overturn the election. And again, remember, they're Republicans. And they're like, look, we'd really love to find you some extra votes. We want you to win, but you didn't win. We can't just go and do crime. Not for you. And again, Donald Trump is used to people around him doing crime. Michael Cohen is a great example, but that's in business. Now it's in politics. And well, people aren't willing to, I would say a lot of people were not willing to do crime on his behalf, especially if they didn't get anything in return. And so, you know, he did not have good luck, right? So now what's going to happen if this were to go through and if Donald Trump were to be found guilty? Well, apparently there would be bad things, for him at least. If Mr. Trump were to be convicted of a state crime in New York and Georgia, he would, one, not be applicable for a federal pardon. So he couldn't be pardoned. So Joe Biden, oh my God, imagine if Joe Biden would be like, I would pardon Donald Trump. Ridiculous, right? But you never know with Democrats. And I'm sorry to say that, but like, sometimes Democrats are way, way too soft on Republicans. And I say that as a progressive, as somebody to the left. Yeah, no, I would hope not. But okay, not only that, he wouldn't be eligible for a pardon, at least in this, in this state case. And also, he could not look to Governor Brian Kemp for a pardon as well, because that's a state pardon. State pardons are only granted by the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, not by the governor, which means Trump, if pursued as a felony, and there is definitely the option of that, and I'm no legal scholar or anything like that, so they could go either way on this if they wanted to, either through misdemeanors or just, as felonies. If it's pursued as felonies, then yeah, he could face jail, but real jail time. And that would be pretty awesome, but I don't know if that's likely to happen. I would say personally, don't count on it. For me, the justice system seems to work, I guess differently for people who are affluent, right? People who are powerful. The former president, and for me, former presidents don't seem to go to prison, even if they've deserved it, okay? Nixon didn't go to prison, over Watergate, so I don't see this happening to Donald Trump. Maybe they'll convict him of a misdemeanor or something, or a fine or something, in an effort to kind of distance themselves from Trump. Maybe they'll make some sort of example of him, but I don't think that's going to necessarily lead to prison time. And so not only that, but I think something that's working in his favor is the fact that Republican voters still love this guy. 60% of them would actually follow him to a new party if he were to leave the Republican Party. According to a recent poll, that is a huge, huge amount of people that would be exiting from the Republican Party to go and follow Donald Trump. So Republicans, no doubt, have this in mind when they're thinking about what charges to bring forward to Donald Trump. So, or, what they're going to vote on. And so I don't have a lot of faith when it comes to the Republican Party, when it comes to doing the right thing. And the right thing, of course, would be holding former President Trump accountable for what he tried during the election. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.